So for this page in your sketchbook, this is going to become a nice reference for you throughout the year whenever you want to come up with a color scheme and you're forgetting some of these terms that we went over. So we're going to do a couple of different little color swatches inside of these circles to remember these color themes. So first off, we're going to start with monochromatic. And when we go through monochromatic, I am going to wet the paper with water, and then I'm going to add some red. I'm going to make tints and shades with red with my watercolors, which means that I will start to mix in some deeper shades of the red. And I'm going to do that with a little bit of black, a little bit of brown to do these darker, deeper shades of red. And then instead of using white, when you do watercolor, you really just let the paper reveal itself. So that means adding more water to the paint in order to get a lighter tint of the watercolor. So I'm going to go through and do that for these boxes. These stay pretty simple, and I'm just going to do 3 colors in monochromatic. So I'm choosing red, blue, and yellow. You can choose, purple, orange, and green if you want, or whatever you want. You just choose one hue for each one and do tints and shades of that hue. So for my first 2 colors here, I mixed a shade of red and a shade of blue with my black. But for yellow, it is a much more delicate color. It gets affected super quickly. So if I tried to do something with black and I used my yellow, what's going to happen is it's going to overpower it really quickly. So what I'm going to suggest is to use your brown to create a shade of your yellow. So I'm going to do that right now and use that instead of the black, just so I can create a nicer, darker shade of the yellow. So for all of my blending here, with my monochromatics, I stayed with one color and then mixed a tint and a shade. So I'm going to continue that where I create light areas and dark areas inside of my circles to show a range of the colors. But now I'm going to start combining colors together. So for this first area right here, we're going to go with complementary colors, which are across from each other in the color wheel. So what complementary colors do is when they're next to each other in an artwork, they help enhance that color. But when they're combined, they start to create a more neutral tone as they combine. So when you blend on here, you're going to start to see where the blue and orange meet and blend. You'll get more of like a neutral brown color that exists. So what you want to try to do is to make it so it doesn't get super muddy. You get a little bit of that blending, but you still see both colors in your little circle. That is the challenge with the complementary colors, is to get the colors to mix, but also not let them get muddy as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off my palette here, and that's just plastic. I'm just going to take some water and wipe it down, and I'm going to get set up for my complementary color schemes. Our next collection of colors are called analogous colors. Now, analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So what I did is I paired 2 colors that lay next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to go with red, orange, orange, yellow, yellow and green, blue and green, blue and violet, and red and violet. These would be great examples for future color schemes, colors that really blend and work well together. So just like I did with the complementary colors, I'm getting the area wet. I'm going to dab in the one color in one part and the other on the other side. You want to see a little bit of mixing of the colors in between, but also make sure that you can see the original hues in there too. You don't want them to get muddy. That's the whole challenge, is mixing the colors but not letting them get super muddy, so we get to see a range in there. So I'm going to go through and start to make my analogous colors. So for our last section, we're going to explore triadic color schemes, which means we use a triangle to move across the color wheel. So where the points of the triangle meet, that is the color that we are going to be using. So if you take that triangle and put it in the center, the first one you're going to get are the primary colors, which are red, blue, and yellow together. So we're taking all of them, putting them together here. Then our second group is orange, purple, and green. So we move those secondary colors together. These next ones get a little bit complex because they're going to be tertiary, which means it mixes a little of each of these together to make a color. So I call this the warm red, blue, and yellow because instead of just a regular red, it becomes a purplish red. And the blue becomes a greenish blue. And the yellow becomes an orangish yellow. For our cool orange, purple, and green color scheme, basically as that triangle moves, our orange becomes a reddish orange, our purple becomes a bluish purple, and our green becomes a yellowish green. You'll see me mix those on a palette off to the side. And then I finalize it with some warm and cool colors as well because they're so often used as a color scheme in our artwork. So when you're done, you're going to have a great reference to use as we continue on exploring the potential of watercolors. And you will decide a color scheme based on the color schemes that we have laid out here in our chart. It's such a great resource to always come back to as you continue to develop your skills in watercolor.